establish. So my guests and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And also, I like working with angels and the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I will introduce you to my wonderful guest, Kathleen Joan. But before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching the show live at a later date, as it means a lot to me to connect with like-minded women. Now, if you've never met me before, then my name is Ray, and I love to help women to crossroads in their life, heal their past, create their future, and transform their present so they can take charge of their destiny in the here and now. I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy, and I use future life progression, past life regression, angelic Reiki, angel oracle cards, guided meditations, hypnosis to help women who feel lost get clear on their reason for being here. And I've also created a transformational journey to help you take charge of your destiny and find your life purpose, and a journey through lifetimes. Now, each episode of the show will cover various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation or angel card reading with the wisdom of my wonderful guests, like today's guest, Kathleen Joan, about how you can claim your sacredness in the image of the goddess. Now, Kathleen Joan is a priestess of Brigid, committed to the resurrection of the divine feminine, especially within her own Catholic Christian tradition. She holds master's degrees in theology and ministry and has over 10 years ministry experience, including directing retreats, teaching classes on religion and spirituality, and leading small group spiritual communities. She offers Reiki energy healing, spiritual direction, and new moon goddess circles, and retreats to help women claim their sacredness in the image of the Divine Mother and take their place in the great rebalancing that is happening in the world today. So without further delay, hello, Kathleen, and welcome to the Angels and Destiny show. How are you today?
Hi, Ray. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing really well.
Brilliant. So before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you that not only can you share this show, but you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Kathleen and I want to be part of this conversation. So please do not be shy. So Kathleen, why don't you tell us more about your journey and how and why we should claim our sacredness in the image of the goddess?
Yeah, thank you, Ray. So, gosh, my journey and claiming one's sacredness in the image of the goddess. Oh, I see the comment on there. That's cool.
Yeah, that was great. I'm saying hello.
Thank you. Thank you for the hug. Yeah, so I will just start by talking a little bit about my own journey. So, I grew up Roman Catholic. I still identify as a Roman Catholic. And I have always felt deeply committed to the spiritual path. So I was always really involved in my religion and always also like a feminist, right? Like growing up a little feminist and wanting, to change the world and women's rights and all that. And one thing that I realized very young was that there was a real disconnect between my sense of that we are all made in the divine image, right? Which is actually official Catholic and Christian teaching, right? And then the idea that what I was seeing and hearing as I was going to mass every week was that I was not, because I was female, I was not worthy to be ordained as a priest, right? And what I was seeing and hearing every week when I would go in to worship was this idea that, I'm not, in some ways, I'm not Christ-like enough, or I'm not God-like enough, right? That as females, we don't channel the divine, that there's some way in which we are less divine or less made in that sacred image, right, than our brothers. And that's obviously false, right?
Yeah.
But there was this huge, that's where it started for me. But what I ended up sort of realizing, so I grew up and was, again, sort of seeking how I could be committed to faith and service. I volunteered with nuns after college. I got my master's degree in theology and ministry, and I ended up writing my thesis on women as images of Christ, right? So I'm like delving into all of this. But what had never come up for me somehow until after I finished my theological studies was the idea of the goddess, like worshiping God as she, like divine mother, right? And I think that for me, that had always been a little bit like on the sidelines as like, oh, that's pagan or that's scary. We don't want to go there, because the divine mother gets labeled as scary, right? Just the same way women's power and agency and sacredness gets labeled as scary and bad and evil, right? Or you're probably a witch if you worship the goddess, and that's a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Many people identify as witches, and that's a great thing, right? So I would say that the divine mother, the goddess, really appeared in my life in several ways after I finished my theological studies. I can say more about that if you want, but and I'm happy to talk about that journey. But what I sort of ultimately came to was like with her, when I started identifying with worshiping God as she, or goddess, God as mother, I was able to finally identify the sacred as being present in me, like fully, in a way that it just, there was this huge disconnect before, right? Like if God is exclusively he, and he is sitting up there on a cloud somewhere. And by the way, this male sort of patriarchal God is always usually depicted as white as well, right? Like this old white king, lord, master figure sitting up on a cloud. Like if that is the divine, that's not present in me, right? Nor do I really even want it to be in a lot of ways, right? But if the divine can be she, then she can be fully present, and we as women can be regarded as fully sacred. Yeah. And that's where I see a lot of the harm that happens, not only in religion but in society, from these dominant images of God all being white and male and old and patriarchal lord, king, master figure, right? It's that's what we start to hold as sacred. That's what we regard as holy and good. We regard male power as sort of natural and trustworthy, right? And we simply don't see the same level of sacredness in women or in people of color, right? Or the earth, which we are not taking care of, our mother, right? Mother Earth. And so when these images get into our subconscious, kind of whether or not we're religious, right? It leads to a society that commits violence against women and that oppresses people of color and that oppresses the earth. So I started to kind of see all these connections, and at the same time really experienced this deep awakening in my own spiritual life when I found God as mother. And so now I'm on a mission to help others encounter her, right?
Yeah, which makes absolute sense, and Graham was saying, this is the one wall that seems to be cracking in some areas we moved. Thank goodness about time. We're supposed to be in the modern era. And he also says, you will never end those studies, Kathleen.
I hope we never do as a society, right? Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. And he also says, is the divine energy shared equally between both sexes? Exactly. And as he said, mankind has segregated the sexes by ancient traditions. Yeah. So it's, and he also says, so are some of the skies. We know. So some of you embrace your femininity are absolutely brilliant. You're nicely balanced, which is what we like, and that's what we really want is the balance, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I say, like, what my mission is to help people, women. I say women because it tends to be most of who I work with, right? But really not, regardless of your gender identity, right? We all have that feminine aspect within us that Western society at least likes to repress and to say that that's not trustworthy, like our intuition, our bodies, our emotions, all of these aspects of ourselves that society says, oh, don't pay attention to that. You got to squish that and just like get back to work and do the logical sort of go, do, push and get everything done sort of, if you want to say sort of hyper masculinized approach, right? And so really it is these aspects within all of ourselves that need a rebalancing, as well as like our climate that needs a rebalancing, our societies that need a rebalancing, right? So I like that you brought up balance. I really like, thank you to the gentleman who brought up balancing, because I really think that that's what it's all about, is restoring that state of balance.
Yeah. So how did you come to see, come to see the goddess, come to see Brigid?
Yeah, thank you. So a couple of stories around that. So I always like to tell this one because this is kind of right when I was finishing my theological studies. A good friend of mine who is also like a feminist Catholic priestess woman, she heard about a Hindu guru who was visiting where we were living in California, and who gives spiritual teaching, and she hugs people. Her name is Amma, and she travels the world. She's known as the hugging saint, right? Yeah. So Amma was one of my first real, like I would say, in-person encounters with like goddess worship, right? With the divine mother imagery. And if you haven't seen Amma, you have to. I mean, she was blown away. I hope she starts traveling again post-COVID, right? I was just enthralled. I mean, she gives such wonderful spiritual teaching, and she is clearly enlightened, as they say she is, right? She's on this plane of consciousness. I mean, then that becomes obvious, right? As you watch her and listen to her. But she also embodies the goddess, like very intentionally. She will go into Devi Bhava, which is goddess mode, and she will dress up as she does and sort of take on this like embodied goddess presence to give out her hugs to everyone. And she stays awake all night hugging everyone who is there. And it's just this gorgeous experience of the Divine Mother's love. I mean, what a beautiful symbol of to just hug everybody who's there, right? And I was just sitting there going, oh my God, you can do this? Like, this is a thing? Like, this is how she can show up, you know? And I also remember the chanting of the 1,000 names of the Divine Mother as part of that Hindu worship service, right? That just absolutely, you know, blew me away. I was like, because I was sitting there asking Amma, like, I don't know who the Divine Mother is. I haven't really encountered her. Can you show me who she is? And then they start chanting the 1,000 names of the Divine Mother. I was like, there's 1,000 names. Like, it was just this amazing wealth, right, of riches of abundant, beautiful, divine feminine imagery. So she was one of my first encounters, and of course I kept going back and back, right, to see more of Amma and soak in her, just soaking in the love with her. And another important thing for me was I encountered a church. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and there's a church there called Ebenezer Lutheran. The nickname is Her Church, and they've sort of transitioned. It's a Lutheran Christian church officially, and they do draw on the Christian tradition, but they also use almost exclusively feminine images and names for the divine. So they have the liturgy of the divine feminine, right, is what they celebrate. And for me, that was amazing because that put together like my Christian background and tradition and training with this beauty, this sort of artistic and creative and imaginative beauty of bringing in the goddess that had just been really lacking in my experience. So Her Church, shout out to them.
Yeah. So how, you know, so is there, do they you know, how does Brigid come into this?
Oh yeah, Brigid. So Her Church was actually where I heard the story of Brigid, and Brigid captured my imagination because she is both an ancient pagan goddess from Ireland. So, and I have about half Irish heritage, as many Americans do, right? And so, so she really called to me from that tradition. And also, she's a Catholic saint. And what happened with the goddess Brigid is when Ireland was Christianized, a lot of the worship of the goddess and the stories, legends, and the qualities about the goddess Brigid just got sort of transferred right onto Saint Brigid, and the people kept her alive as a Catholic saint within this new kind of paradigm. So there's this way in which the goddess continued within the Christian tradition and survived, right? And she stayed alive under patriarchy, which I found super inspiring, right?
Typical woman. See,
yes,
we can survive.
Yes, absolutely.
We
She's
might just
there. She's
change our
still there.
aspect, but we're still there.
Totally right. Well, and there's even a story about Saint Brigid. So when she founded her Catholic monastery in Ireland, she felt called by Jesus to follow this new faith and all this. So there's an actual historical woman, right, Brigid from Kildare. And when she founded her monastery, though, there was this ancient tradition that the goddess priestesses of Brigid, they kept a sacred flame alive. That there was a sacred flame of Brigid, and the priestesses would tend that day and night and never let it go out. Well, Saint Brigid preserved this within her Catholic women's monastery. So the nuns kept that fire of Brigid alive. Like the Catholic nuns, there they are, tending the flame of the goddess Brigid. And that flame, actually, they say that it burned in Kildare in the monastery until like the 1600s or something, and then it was relit. So I actually took a trip to Ireland in 2018. I was able to visit the current Brigidine sisters and their spirituality center in Kildare, and I was able to see the current flame of Brigid that they have lit there. So Brigid in all of those forms, right? She captured my imagination because it was like that's how I see myself and so many women today who may identify with the Christian tradition, but want to keep alive that flame of the goddess and want to take us back to a time of greater balance. And so that's who Brigid is to me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just I love the way, you know, the that, you know, gods, goddesses, spirits, angels, whatever, always come to us it's always divine timing, and the right ones will always show up.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who it is. You just kind of like trust and know, and then suddenly they're there.
Yeah, right. Well, I'd never heard of Amma. I'd never heard of a goddess church. Like literally, I just happened to like be riding a bus in San Francisco and was like, huh, that purple church has a banner that says God loves her children. I guess I'll check that out. Like, like that was that, right? That was the invitation. And I happened to follow that invitation, and same thing. I heard about Brigid, and then we decided, just my husband and I, we just like took a trip to Ireland. I was like, I am going to see Brigid in Kildare. And so it was just like little kind of steps here and there that have, as it is, right? That, the way the divine kind of invites us step by step into who we are and how we're playing our part in everything, in the great rebalancing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And as Graham has said there, synchronicity. Always synchronicity. And he also says that is just it. There is no one name, but one spirit in balance. Perfect. Oh, and he also, because he likes hugs, so he's from that state, and because I'm a full-time hugger. So what more can you say to that one with a full-time hugger? So how did you? Oh, and Graham's also been to Ireland as well, and he loved his
Oh, great.
in Ireland. Yeah, I've been over to Ireland to visit there as well. So, how did you actually start to work with Brigid? And the flame. How did that come about?
Yeah, thanks. So the ministry that I have now is called Brigid's Flame, and so it's named after that idea of like keeping her alive in my tradition and in the traditions that we have right at this time, kind of preserving that flame of the goddess. Um, I was for 9 years. I worked at a Catholic high school, so I taught religion and I ran retreats. Um, and for various reasons, at the end of this year, it was time to move on from that. So I've recently stepped away, from that. And I'm leaning full time into building this goddess based ministry. And I have several, like, it kind of got started with just leading women's circles, right? So I have new moon goddess circles that I lead every month. That's through a group called the Wild Woman Project, which is their mission is to kind of rediscover like our wild nature and put us back in touch with who we are as women and as, feminine hearted beings
Yeah,
on the planet. And I feel really passionate about just that gathering in circle, particularly the gathering of women in circle at the new
mm,
moon. It can such a powerful time, just with the forces that are going on in the moon, the cycles, and the earth,
yeah,
and a time for us to really connect to who we are and our intuition. And so that's been a beautiful place to just kind of keep that flame burning, right? To keep in touch with ourselves and in community with each other. And I've also, I was attuned and certified as a Reiki healer several years ago, and I hadn't really started using it until the pandemic started. And then all of a sudden, I, started offering distant Reiki healing because I work at a distance, right? As you know,
yeah,
you're a Reiki practitioner, and so that became a beautiful kind of way that even during a pandemic and at a distance, people could connect to
yeah,
their spiritual journey. So I offer Reiki in the Arms of the Goddess sessions, which is Reiki, but with a bit of spiritual framing and accompaniment and
yeah,
that's involved. And so it's a way for you to kind of receive like an energetic hug from the goddess. We're talking about hugs, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So those and but yeah, I really do see myself as kind of being sort of a focus for community, for people to come together and women to remember who they are and to discern how, we are called to be in service to the goddess, to be in service to the earth, to be in service to justice at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And Graham has got a question just asking, are men allowed in such groups at retreats?
Thank you. Graham, I'm working on developing those all gender offerings. I've started out with the female identified retreats and new moon circles, but I believe there is really an important place for retreats, worship offerings where everyone can worship the goddess, because I do really think everybody needs her. So as I develop those, I will absolutely let you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant, because again, it is kind of like bringing that balance through, and it's kind of
Mhm.
like you also kind of think if you, once that energy starts there, then sort of like male dominated things like druidism,
Mm.
women's energy can start going into that
Mhm.
a lot more. I mean, we do have female druids, but it's still sort of like it's still seen really as a masculine
Mm.
thing. But then I suppose that will, even if you do get a mix, that will always still be seen as masculine, and goddesses, moon worship will always be
Mhm.
seen as feminine.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and I love that, right? Because like, at least in the patriarchal like Christian tradition that I grew up in, like worshiping God as male was viewed as appropriate for everybody, right? Like we're all going to do this. We're all going to come to church. We're all going to, pray to God the Father, and then everybody does that. And so what I actually really love it when now people who aren't female identified still want to talk about goddess as mother, because like often when I say to people like, oh, I'm into goddess and divine mother and all these things, and they say, or like I talk about the Goddess Church in San Francisco, right? And the first question always is, are there any men there? Do the men go there? I say, well, yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Because like, why can't we all worship her, right? The same way that we would all worship God as a father figure. So
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And,
Mhm.
and Graham has said, great, thank you. It's become apparent the divide has been watched for centuries, and finally is being balanced.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and he says the Druids, the Roman Island, had both sexes in their culture.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot more, but it was still quite male dominated for a while. But yeah, a lot of things are changing, which is absolutely brilliant. Which is obviously what you're working with, trying to get the balance. So how do you help? How can we you know actually claim as ourselves in the face of the goddess? How do we do that?
Yeah. That is a great question. Um, so that is actually like a deep, at least in my experience, a really deep and powerful sort of spiritual process that each of us needs to go through, right? And it can be psychological as well. I mean, if we've internalized a lot of oppressive imagery from religion or culture and all these things, right? Like I will say, therapy has been an important part of my journey, right?
I think it's been
As I was
most
doing all of this,
therapists.
yes, yes, because there's just a lot that gets into our subconscious. And so whatever it is, as we've experienced oppression and that has been normalized in society, like there's some unconscious unpacking work that has to be done. And for me, a lot of that happened in spiritual direction. And so that's actually another offering that I now offer to others, right? And I don't know if not everybody may be familiar with spiritual direction. It's actually a really ancient practice where people will just talk with a spiritual companion to help them kind of sort through their experiences of the divine, of their path, of their calling, of where are they feeling guided, how are they emerging into their divine expression of their life, right? And and that was invaluable for me to have really good spiritual companionship, to spiritual directors who could hold space for me to sort through a lot of these things, because it's like I would have that experience, like you talk about that kind of mountaintop experience, like with
Yeah,
Amma, the hugging saint, but then it's like, well, what did that mean? Like, what was that? Was it just kind of an emotional high, or is this speaking to something deeper and more profound that's going to take a long time to evolve and emerge in my own life, right? And so I do absolutely recommend spiritual direction, because I think, like, if you're having questions, you're having experiences, you started to realize, maybe I have old images of the divine that I need to let go of, right? Or maybe I want to start exploring my spirituality in this way, or connecting it back to the earth, or however. You can take those experiences to a spiritual companion, or spiritual director, right? But it's not really directive. It's like I don't tell people how to pray or anything. I'm holding space, right, for them to
yeah,
explore all of these experiences. Um, So yeah, as far as claiming your sacredness, I mean, I think there's that deep interior process, right? Of which is really one of letting yourself be loved by the divine, right? And letting go of the stuff that has gotten in the way of that, and that takes years, or it can be really really quick sometimes if you're you open up and get the divine download, whatever. But it is a journey, so there's the interior piece. I would also say there's like a community piece to it, right? Like for me, it was really important to surround myself with people who wanted to talk about God as mother and wanted to worship her that way, because then it's like, oh, I'm not crazy. like, like she's
Yeah.
just not just me. It's not just something in my head, right? That there is a broader societal need to bring back some of this, divine feminine religion, and that with that is the reclaiming that the feminine is sacred, right? And that all the earth is sacred, and that us living in balance with each other is this beautiful and sacred goal that we have. So that's a lot in that answer to that question. But how do we claim our sacredness? Like I think there's a deep interior part where you're processing your own stuff,
Yeah.
therapy and spiritual direction. I recommend both.
Yeah.
And then really like being surrounded by community, right? Who can affirm your experience and help you to feel that you are sacred, that you are made in the divine image, right? In a way that maybe you didn't get growing up. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And community is so important now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it is when you get the right people around you, the right community,
Mm-hmm.
everyone in there just blossoms and grows and really steps in them because there's all that support, that energy, and you are a collective. You're not separate, you are all one. Uh,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
yeah, so I love community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Graham says like we all need therapy. Yeah, we, we yeah we
Don't we?
we
Everybody
totally
does.
do. Nice to hear that is still applicable, Kathleen Hugs. I think
Yeah.
that was when you were talking about spiritual guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there. Uh, yeah, and Graham says the old church depicted that it was only males when told to speak to the divine.
Yeah, exactly the problem, right? Yep.
Yeah, yeah. That was a problem that's being addressed now, which is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
That we do that. So thank you for that. That's really sort of like been really interesting to hear that side of the goddess. Because I'm from a pagan background,
Uh-huh.
so it's not it's nice to hear the other side of it. And again, it's the balance.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, well, I love that. That's so interesting that you probably got the reverse, growing up as a pagan. That's fascinating to me because I was like, ooh, that was off limits to me when I was growing up, like,
yeah, yeah.
uh-huh.
So it's beautiful, that the balance is there,
Mhm.
no matter which path you may or may not follow.
Mhm.
And that which is really good. So as you know, I do angel oracle card readings, and I do guided meditation. So each week I like to ask my guests what they would like me to do. So Kathleen, would you like me to pull you an oracle card for you and those
Hmm.
watching, or would you like me to do a mini guided meditation?
Thank you. I would love an oracle card. Love a little
Perfect.
guidance
Funny enough,
for
I
all
was
of our
thinking
watchers.
that then. Okay, so Pentimus cards. Now, when I do card readings, I don't actually predict the future with my cards. I do the cards for what we need to know for our highest good at this moment in time, which may sound a little bit contradictory because obviously I work with past life regression, so I take people back in time. But I
Oh
take
yeah.
people back in time so that they clear those issues so they can be fully present. And when I take people forward in time, it's so they know and understand where they're going so they can be fully
Mhm.
present. So everything
Mm.
is in the present. So what does Kathleen and everyone who's watching this show need to know for their highest good? Perfect with what we're talking about the
Oh yeah.
moons. First light, beginning a new cycle.
Ooh.
which is absolutely brilliant, you know. So for me, so for this is for you, Kathleen. It's basically saying, you know, this is starting a new cycle for you and for others around you of bringing that masculine, that feminine together in that balance. And it's beautiful that you're doing that, you know, and you're you know, it is that first light of, okay, let's get this going. So that's absolutely brilliant. That card has come out for you. So yeah, you're starting this new cycle, which is absolutely amazing. And of course, to everyone who's watching, again, you know, this is saying now this is a time for you to start a new cycle, to actually look outside beyond your confines at the moment, and actually expand your consciousness, your awareness, to see what else is out there, and start that new cycle and be that light, and shining and helping other people. So yeah, that was a beautiful card. uh,
That's beautiful. Thank you. It actually reminds me of Brigid, you know, because her Brigid's holiday is Imbolc, you know, which is
yeah,
look, that's the returning of the light at winter. That look, I
yes,
can see the little snow on the card. That's awesome. So that's actually Brigid, right? Is she's
yeah,
like the first light of returning, you know, springtime in the middle of
yeah,
winter.
yeah, it's in bulk, yeah. um
Yeah, cool.
Absolutely perfect. And of course, Graham says first light could mean the divine light is first. It could most
It
definitely,
could.
Graham, it most definitely could.
Could
So,
indeed.
so Kathleen, do you have any insights or thoughts to leave our viewers?
Insights or thoughts to leave viewers. Yeah, I just really want to invite everyone to that deepening sense of your own sacredness. I think that the more we all claim that we are made in the divine image, no matter who we are and all our diversity, like are exactly the way we are right now, that is exactly what the divine wanted us to be, and that she's made us this way for a reason. She's given us a purpose in this lifetime, and I need this message too as I'm thinking about it. But what's coming through is, you know, the more we accept the love, the more we like allow in, you know, thank you for the hug messages to our viewers today. The more we allow in that infusion of divine love and claim that for ourselves, the more we'll just be free to participate in her great rebalancing that she's doing right now.
Oh, beautiful, perfect words. So thank you so much. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this and found it insightful, because I know I definitely have. So Kathleen, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Thank you. You can find me at brigidsflame.org. That's all one word, Brigid's with an S. Brigidsflame.org. And I would love to share a free gift with all of our viewers. I have a download that you can download free from my website, so brigidsflame.org. And it's a guide that I created called 5 Ways to Connect with the Sacred Feminine Daily. And that has some spiritual practices that everyone can, they're very simple, practical. You can put those into practice just in your house, wherever you are every day, just to help you reconnect to that divine feminine presence and just allow her and start to bring her into your life more. So I would love to share that with you.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, thank
Yeah.
you for that. And I'll put the links to that in the comments, um, when the show's finished. And Graham says, totally enjoyed the show, ladies. Thank you
Thanks,
very much.
Graham. Thanks for watching.
Yes, thank you for bringing your masculine energy
Yes.
to our feminine energy. It's
Uh-huh.
a really nice balance. So, of course, if you have reached that crossroads in your life and you need help finding your life purpose and getting clear on your path, then I would love to be that guide for you. So please feel free to reach out and connect with me, and we can arrange a free 20 to 30-minute video call to find out more about each other and how I can help you on your journey, and take charge of your destiny. And of course, please feel free to sign up to my weekly newsletter and receive a free future life progression recording, where I take you into a future lifetime to get guidance and clarity to bring into your current life, as well as a couple of other gifts as well. So you've got two lots of gifts there, both for myself and Kathleen. So do take a trip and have a look at those. So everyone, thank you so much for watching, and I'd like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more women who feel lost and want to get clear on their destiny, just like you. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, then feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when the show goes live, and also for any of the guided meditations that I put out. And I look forward to seeing you all same time, same place next week. And again, thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Graham. And I'll see you all soon. Bye.